Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at another one of these Season 18 move updates for Go Battle League, and that is Steel Wing being given to Shadow EMPOLEON. Previously, Shadow EMPOLEON was running Waterfall, a fast move that does a lot of damage, but its energy generation is not great. But now with Steel Wing, it's kind of the best of both worlds. It still has pretty good fast move pressure, but it generates energy a lot better, giving EMPOLEON a much needed buff. Now the question will be, EMPOLEON's better, but is it worth using? So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's test out Steel Wing Shadow EMPOLEON in the Open Great League. Hopping into the first match, leading Cresselia into Shadow Gligar. Two better responses in the back, so I save switch into Feraligatr, and my opponent is going to respond with an Umbreon. In the Great League, Feraligatr definitely prefers to be Shadow. Unfortunately, it's been out of Rocket Grunts for a while, and I don't have a Shadow for the Great League, so I am going to be running a Shiny that I have from its Calm Day some years back. I'm able to make it to two more Hydro Cannons, looking to apply some pressure onto the Umbreon. That Hydro Cannon gets the Umbreon kind of low. It looks like this Hydro potentially could be enough to threaten a shield. The Hydro just barely does not KO. The bulk of Umbreon comes in clutch for my opponent, and I'm just going to let this go and attempt to go for an aggressive Psycho Cut farm down. In comes the Cresselia, but the Umbreon refusing to get KO'd, able to make it to one final foul play. But the good news is my Cresselia is able to tank that very well. This is actually a new Cresselia that I was able to trade for while in Los Angeles at Sinnoh Tour. My old one was an 8, 9, 10. This one is a 2, 10, 13, so a significantly better stat product. I'm firing off this Future Sight, that connects. In comes the Empoleon in the back. It's a Dugong, and this is a matchup where before, if you had Waterfall, you could not win as the Shadow Empoleon. But now Steel Wing is going to hit for neutral. This is a really tough call to make. Is my opponent going to bait? I shield at the last second, and that proves to be a wise decision, as it is going to be the Drill Run. I'm going to be firing off this Drill Peck. Drill Peck will be getting the opponent quite low, so they will commit the shield, and Shadow Empoleon just looks inevitable in this endgame. The Steel Wings have basically farmed down Dugong almost into the red health, and there it is. It's in the red health purely from fast moves. I'm going to be firing off this Drill Peck. Drill Peck is going to pick up the knockout. In comes the Gligar. Gligar gets Steel Wing down, and I'm able to take the win. Hopping into the next match, leading Cresselia into Shadow Dragonair. Pretty nice matchup for the Cresselia, even without the Moonblast. I'm farming up energy here with the Cresselia. Opponent is going to fire off the Body Slam as soon as they get it, and unfortunately, not sure if the game started or what happened there, but I do not get my Psycho Cut through. However, they save switch into a Wigglytuff, and they're going to regret that decision as in comes Shadow Empoleon. The Steel Wings tearing through the Wigglytuff. I undercharge the Hydro Cannon so I can get a little bit of extra farm leaving this matchup. Are they going to send in the Dragonair? No, they send in a Gligar. Gligar just goes for the Aerial Ace. As Shadow on Shadow, that could probably come close to KOing, but I'm going to commit the shield because I know I can make it to back-to-back Hydro Cannons and grab both my opponent's shields or just simply get a KO. I go for Hydro Cannon number 1, and now I'm going for Hydro Cannon number 2. Hydro Cannon will be shielded, and its charge attack priority even better. And at this point, I'm just in the driver's seat of this match. The Aerial Ace does KO. I send in the Feraligatr. They have to try and go for the catch. I hold on to the energy, and I'm able to bank the move and then send in Cresselia. Future Sight from Cresselia, massive damage onto Dragonair. Dragonair is going to get farmed down. Back in comes the Cresselia, back in comes the Gligar, but the Cresselia is ready and waiting. Grass Knot takes down the Gligar and takes the win. Moving into the next match, Cresselia versus Cresselia. Now, this is a situation where having a super high rank Cress might actually work against me, as of course I am going to be losing charge attack priority. And we both actually farm up to 11, and I do lose charge attack priority. So this could get a bit uncomfortable. As my opponent, obviously we're going to have identical pacing, but if they always win charge attack priority, if this is a matchup that ends with a charge attack KOing instead of a Psycho Cut farm down, and I'm guessing it will end with a charge attack KOing, then I'm actually going to lose lead here despite the fact that I have a better rank. I fire off the Grass Knot, opponent is going to let that through, and it looks like, yeah, 2 more Grass Knots will be able to KO me. It'll actually be pretty close. We will have to see. My opponent is going to go for the Grass Knot. The Grass Knot is going to connect. Oh man, I might live this on like 1 HP. That would be really, really clutch if so. The Grass Knot connects. It is charge attack priority. And let's see, can my Cresselia hang on here? The Grass Knot does pick up the KO. I send in Feraligatr. My opponent is going to pivot into their own Feraligatr, and they're running the Shadow. A pivot like this immediately makes me think that they might be running the exact same team as me. The Crunch, unfortunately, does not get the debuff. I'm farming up energy. My opponent fires off their charge attack. I commit the shield, and it is just going to be the Hydro. I go for the Hydro, but I end up losing charge attack priority. That is a bit unfortunate. The Hydro is going to get me very low. I'm able to hang on and return fire with the Hydro Cannon, and the Hydro Cannon is going to be able to pick up the knockout. In the back, it is the same team, the Battle of EMPOLEONs, and this is going to be a tough endgame. I did still preserve a little bit of Feraligatr to farm down the Cresselia in the endgame. I'll have to be mindful of a potential catch. I'm farming up, opponent tries for the catch onto Cresselia. They are unsuccessful, and with that failed catch, this game is a win. I can shield once. It doesn't really matter what Hydro Cannon I shield, as I will be able to survive one, and I should be able to make it to the back-to-back Hydro Cannons, and there it is. So in the Battle of the Mirrors, I am actually able to emerge victorious there, despite the fact that I did lose charge attack priority on the lead, which ended up being a little bit of an advantage, as I was able to get an advantage in that Feraligatr mirror in the endgame. Speaking of Feraligatr, we see it on the lead in the next match, Cresselia versus a regular Feraligatr. So, like me, this trainer must not have access to the Shadow. I'm going for the Grass Knot as soon as I get it. This does not knock out, but it does quite a lot of damage. I'm expecting they'll try and farm up some energy, so I try and go for the catch. The catch is unsuccessful, in comes a Guzzlord, and I'm completely walled. A lot of Feraligatrs do run Ice Beam though, so I'm hoping my opponent is going to respect it. And they do, but the question now becomes, why did I go for a crunch? A Hydro Cannon does more, and then I go for another crunch. I have apparently forgotten where the Hydro Cannon button is. At least I get a debuff there, but now, oh man, I am still not going for Hydro Cannon. This is really not ideal gameplay on my part. Just too many battles today. I'm going to send in the Shadow EMPOLEON. They're going to be able to make it to 2 Brutal Swings or 2 Crunches. They are actually running Crunch. The first does not get the debuff, and I'm going to be shielding up the second. I want to preserve HP on the EMPOLEON, as EMPOLEON, up energy, can hopefully put in work in the back, and my opponent has a non-Shadow Gligar, and this is looking pretty decent for me. I'm going to fire off the Hydro Cannon. They can't really afford to overfarm too much, so I'm just going to switch when they make it to the dig, and I'm able to get the catch. That's huge. The dig is going to connect. In comes Feraligatr. Feraligatr stored so much energy, and they go for the Hydro Cannon. The Hydro Cannon is going to connect. I go for the Grass Knot, but then I realize their Wincon is trying to farm down with the Gligar. I go for a Zero Bubble. It still KOs, and now I worry that I've kept myself too healthy. They get 4 wing attacks. They need 2 more, but I'm 2 Steel Wings off. I win charge attack priority, and this is a Shadow Hydro Cannon. Gligar never stood a chance, and we're able to take the win. Moving into the next match, leading Cresselia into Charge-a-Bug. Now this team, I kind of built it without thinking about Charge-a-Bug as a Pokemon. This is going to be a really, really difficult game because I have no response to a Charge-a-Bug. I fire off the Future Sight, I'm going to farm up, switch into the Feraligatr, and I am able to catch an X-Scissor. So that's step 1. I've gotten them low, and I've been able to make a catch. I continue to farm up with the Feraligatr. Opponent is going to be firing off their charge attack. I commit the shield. It's the X-Scissor. I go for the Hydro, anticipating them to fire on charge attack priority, but they switch into their own Feraligatr, and it's going to be the Shadow. I'm going to be able to make it to the Crunch. Now the question is, will they shield it? I have to hope that they try and call it the Hydro, but they shield it. And at this point, I don't see a way forward to win this game, as Shadow Feraligatr just does way too much damage. Like, as we saw in the previous game, this team can handle Feraligatr, but if it's Charge-a-Bug with Feraligatr, I just lose. And unfortunately, this does KO. Steel Wing just doesn't have a lot of fast move pressure. I just don't see a way forward, so I resign the match. Great lead in the next match, Cresselia versus Lantern. Incredibly happy to see the Lantern on the lead, as of course it would completely decimate my backline. They're going to fire off the Surf as soon as they get there. I'm going to let that through. Opponent save switches into a Zweilous. Look at the spice from the opponent. I'm farming up. And versus Dragons, this is another situation where having Steel Wing is nice, because you can actually hit for neutral, whereas Waterfall previously would be resisted. This is a tough call to make. Are they going to go for the Dark Pulse? I shield, and it's the Body Slam. That's unfortunate. Farming up with the EMPOLEON. Just cannot get to the Drill Peck. I'm just going to let this through. My opponent fires off the Body Slam. The Body Slam does not KO, and now I get to guarantee Switch advantage or Shield advantage. And honestly, I'm okay with that. They decide to let this go. They're just looking for farm on the Lantern. Back in comes Cresselia. Cresselia. I have the Grass Knot loaded, so I may as well start launching these Grass Knots. The Grass Knot number 1 is going to connect. I'm able to make it to Grass Knot number 2, and I'm expecting a shield now from the opponent. They have energy on the Lantern that they do not want to let go to waste, so they're going to be returning fire. My Cresselia is quite bulky, so I'm perfectly fine with absorbing a Thunderbolt. I have to watch for the switch. In the back, it's a Medicham. So we don't see an Annihilate with the team, but we do see a Medicham. But either way, these two fighters both take super effective damage from the Shadow Claw. It's one of the reasons why people initially wanted Shadow Claw for Alligator in the Medicham meta quite a ways back, because of course it can hit for super effective damage against Medicham, but in this particular instance, it also works very nicely against Annihilate, as of course Annihilate, due to the Ghost subtyping, will also take super effective. The Lantern has to throw a move here, as I would be able to make it to a crunch, and I have a Grass Knot loaded, so this should just be a win, as the Surf will pick up the KO, but the Cresselia, very low on health, but alive in the back with the Grass Knot, is going to be able to pick up the knockout onto the Lantern. Absolutely nightmare lead in the next match, Cresselia into Guzzlord. Not only am I not running Moonblast, but I'm not running Ice Beam on the Feraligatr. So this Pokemon basically just steamrolls the team. I'm going to farm up to a potential Moonblast and go for the move that I have, Grass Knot. The bluff works. They commit the shield. I send in Feraligatr. Again, I don't have Ice Beam, but by switching in, I'm bluffing that I do. Opponent switches out. They send in Lantern. I did need to bait this out, as Empoleon would get completely crushed by the Lantern. But man, things are not looking good in this matchup. Unfortunately, I'm not able to make it to another crunch. I'm only able to make it to the Hydro. Hydro Cannon will connect. Lantern got the full farm down. I send back in the Cresselia, and Cresselia will be able to absorb the Thunderbolt here. Opponent is going to full send the Thunderbolt. I'm farming up with the Cresselia, and I just want the Lantern gone. I fire off the Grass Knot, and Grass Knot is going to pick up the knockout. They send in the Guzzlord. I send in Empoleon. These Steel Wings starting to chip away at the health of the Guzzlord. I commit the shield. They end up going for the Dragon Claw in the back. The opponent is running Mantine. So they're running a Guzzlord double water team, which honestly seems like a pretty solid team archetype. They're going to be firing off energy, and I'm just going to let this through. The opponent is running Bubble Beam on the Mantine. That's a bit unfortunate, as of course that means this next Drill Peck is not going to be enough to knock out. This Drill Peck will connect. Opponent able to withstand the damage. I'm running out of HP. This could get tough. I let it go. It's another Bubble Beam. I'm able to get the farm down, but I'm double debuffed. I'm going to bank the Drill Peck for later, send in the Cresselia. They're firing off energy, and I need to commit the shield. Again, I have not revealed that I do not have Moonblast, so I have to rely on my opponent to basically respect a potential Moonblast. So I farmed up energy here. I go for the Grass Knot. I get the shield. Opponent tries to go for the farm down, but they're unable to do so. The question is, does a resisted Grass Knot plus a Drill Peck KO? And I think it just will. In comes the Empoleon winning charge attack priority. The Drill Peck does pick up the KO. And against tough odds, we're able to take that win. Moving into the next match, what a lead. Cresselia into Lantern. Opponent save switches into Shadow Dragonair, and I haven't seen a lot of dragons. So in hindsight, maybe I should have run the Moonblast, because the Moonblast would have come in handy. I fake the Moonblast, go for the Grass Knot, get the shield, and now I send in the Shadow Empoleon. Shadow on Shadow, this is a resisted Aqua Tail, but it's still going to hurt. The Aqua Tail connects, I'm able to make it to the Drill Peck, and unless they want a double shield, this Dragonair is getting knocked out. And they're going to let that through. They're not playing for switch. They want farm on the Lantern. Lantern gets a big farm down. That's unfortunate. I send in the Cresselia. Cresselia going for the Grass Knot, and I have a call to make. Thunderbolt, I mean, it doesn't do a lot, but I do want to preserve health, and I get baited with a Surf. That is definitely a feels bad moment. Firing off the Grass Knot will be shielded, so they are really trying to protect this Lantern. They try and go for a Grass Knot catch onto Goodra, and I'm going to fire off the Future Sight. So again, I am really, really sad in this moment that I am not running the Moonblast. I decided to commit the shield here, as I do want to preserve the Grass Knot for later. I send in the Feraligatr. Feraligatr, they're not going to be able to make it to the Power Whip. It should only be the Aqua Tail. But in this moment, I suddenly realize that I lose, because I don't think crunches are enough to KO unless I get a debuff. If I get a debuff, I think I can win. The crunch does not get the debuff. They end up throwing energy here, but they can just leave with a charge attack and win charge attack priority over my Cresselia. So I'm able to make it to another crunch, but it's just not going to matter. And they were triple weak to Cress, and I lost. That feels absolutely terrible. I just didn't play this game very well. And maybe, I mean, if I had Moonblast, that's a different game. But anyway, a loss is a loss. Hopping into the final match, great lead Cresselia into Swampert. I kept this game in because this opponent is a massive Giga Chad with the spice. He sends in an XL Lileep. I get the screenshot because I'm like, what am I facing right now? I go for the Future Sight. Let's see this damage onto Lileep. Lileep actually has some pretty good bulk. I was extremely surprised. Lileep able to absorb the Future Sight. They're going to fire off the Grass Knot. The Grass Knots are adding up quite a bit. I'm firing off a Grass Knot of my own, hoping that this is going to put it into Shadow Claw farm down range, but it looks like it's still too healthy. In comes the Feraligatr. Oh no, the Lileep makes it to a move. I'm not 100% sure of Lileep counts. In hindsight, I probably could have figured it out because it's probably not too different from Credilli, but I was just so shell-shocked by the Lileep. And in the back, a Furfrou running Sand Attack. Massive, massive props to this opponent. The spice is just off the charts. They're going to be hit with another Hydro Cannon. That would KO, so they're forced to commit the shield. Furfrou continuing to farm. Furfrou, I believe, does get a grass move. I think it's Grass Knot, and it is, so that ends up being a pretty nice shield. I need to grab the final shield from my opponent and then aggressively pivot into the Empoleon. As long as I do that, this game should be a win. I need the energy advantage to be able to outpace the Swampert. They bank energy on the Furfrou. In comes the Swampert, and I'm going to be firing off the Hydro Cannon. The Hydro Cannon is going to do quite a lot of damage. Steel Wing is resisted here. This is thrown on charge attack priority. Their Hydro Cannon is going to get me low. I'm going to be able to make it to another Hydro. This Hydro is going to be able to pick up the knockout. And then the question is, how many Steel Wings do I get on the Furfrou? Only one. I think I need to send in Cresselia. Cresselia is my only source of fast move pressure here, so I just send in the Cresselia, force them to throw their energy. They go for the Surf. The Surf does not KO, and I'm able to barely survive XL Lileep and Furfrou. All in all, I think that Shadow Empoleon is definitely improved. However, the environment around Shadow Empoleon in the current Open Great League is quite hostile to it, to be honest. Like Whiscash, the Mud Boys, Annihilate, Charge-a-Bug. Now that you're on Steel Wing, Ready Steel is a lot more of a problem as well. So it is definitely improved, and I don't really see a reason why anyone's going to be running Waterfall going forward. But I do think in the Open Great League currently, that there's a lot of Pokemon that are in the top meta that do very, very well into it. So I think for the time being, it's probably going to be a bit stronger in like the Ultra Premier formats or potentially future Great League limited metas. Because it's a very good Mon, but it's just the current meta does very, very well against it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.